Now we want to move on to an alarming warning about texting while driving.
And we are now seeing state after state increase the criminal penalties for what you do behind the wheel.
A landmark verdict in Massachusetts today convicted a driver of vehicular homicide, and his crime was blamed on texting while driving.
And a warning about texting while driving, but is that message getting through to teenage drivers?
We all know the dangers of driving while on a cell phone. Police say having one hand on the wheel and another on a cell is just asking for trouble, never mind the distraction of trying to carry on a conversation.
That the driver was making cell phone calls at the time of the crash.
These teenagers all admit to texting while driving in the past and know their friends do the same.
2.5 years behind bars on 18-year-old Aaron DeVoe for texting and driving, causing a head-on collision that killed 55-year-old Daniel Shea.
But the driver of this San Antonio City bus speeding down the road clearly had something else occupying his attention.
It's even more irresponsible than drinking and driving as far as I'm concerned.
Records show the driver sent and received text messages in the moments before the crash. 5 of his children drowned in the back seat. Police say a cell phone was involved.
Phone records show he received 4 text messages in the minutes before the crash. Each text takes a driver's eyes off the road for approximately 4.6 seconds. It's like driving an entire football field blindfolded.
On his way to school one morning, the day before a game, he runs into a road closure due to an accident. So he gets on his cell phone to tip off his friend driving in to avoid the area.
I heard skid marks, and I didn't realize it was a crash.
Danny hears the brakes and hears the windshield just shattering. His friend was in an accident. Danny, first on the scene, followed his friend to shock trauma, stayed by his bedside, went to the hospital every day for 2 weeks. And instead of attending homecoming, Danny's homecoming was spent bringing his date and others to shock trauma. He wants to talk about the dangers of cell phones and driving.
We wanted to talk to other students about the dangers.
What is distracted driving?
So that's a good question. Distracted driving is anything that causes your mind, your eyes, and your hands to not focus on the road.
Distracted driving is anything that takes your concentration away from what you're supposed to be doing at the time, and that is driving a car.
The main concern has been about driving with speeding on a cell phone, but distracted driving can include eating in the car while you're trying to drive.
Texting, talking on the phone, and it's obvious when people are changing their music.
Distracted driving is any activities that take your hands, your eyes, and your mind off the road.
Sometimes just fooling with the radio to find the right station that you want, or to play the right CD.
Having the music blaring and talking to all the friends in your car, and you're really not paying attention to what you're doing when you're driving.
Now, we don't call them accidents because accidents implies that nothing could have been done. These are crashes. Something somewhere could have been done to prevent this.
I have really observed people of all ages are guilty of all of that. It's not just the young people.
There are recent surveys out there now that saying adults is just as guilty as teenagers.
About 50% of adults are guilty of distracted driving, texting while driving, and about 43% of teens are guilty of that. So all of us are guilty.
A lot of times I think people just are in a hurry, and they just think they can do it all. And a lot of times we don't want to be told that we can't do it all. I'm a great driver. I mean, I won't be distracted. I can handle it.
And I think we forget that, you are controlling a 2,000-pound missile thing going down the roadway.
Life is very fragile, and one simple mistake can devastate people by taking somebody's life. One kind of glance at the phone off of the road can cause a tremendous accident. And just to be careful with the privilege that you have to operate a car, and to be responsible, because other people's lives and theirs are always at risk.
When a teenager comes in, and then you have to take care of the teenager, and then you have the parents at bedside, just to see the hurt on the patient's family members, especially the parents.
The reaction is anywhere from complete stoic response, no emotion, to absolute pandemonium. where you have people hitting the floor, people screaming.
Wait to make that phone call. Wait to, eat that food. Wait to fiddle with a radio, a CD player.
Put the cell phones, please, in your glove compartment. No message is worth losing your life or anyone else's life over.
And if you see it happening, with either your friends, your loved ones, your parents, you tell them. Please, let's put that down, focus on the road.
My nephew Christopher, who was 34 years old, married with 4 children, had been in a car accident that morning on his way to work. Obviously, he had fallen asleep at the wheel and crossed over into oncoming traffic and died at the scene. He had broken his neck.
For me, it was in 1968, long before you guys were born, and my brother was killed by a drunk drive. There was a group of women who were going out to dinner, and they had already had a cocktail party at somebody's house, and the woman who was driving missed her socks on, plowed through it, and hit my brother's car, and it spun around, and the back of the car hit a telephone pole. And my brother Bob was killed instantly. And the other 2 walked away from it with like a wrenched back and bruises. So I lost my older brother when he was 19 and I was 15. He was a great guy. He had been a football star in the D.C. area. He'd gotten many scholarship offers to go to play in college. He was playing at George Washington University and then had decided to become a priest. So he'd gone 1 year to the seminary. So I think that our world lost out on somebody that would have been a fabulous priest.
I think when people experience this kind of loss and this kind of sadness, that it would change some of their own behaviors, the way they socialize, meaning the drinking and the partying. But it doesn't seem to stop it for long because people tend to move on, and the lesson that they've learned it doesn't sink in for some people.
We talk about violent crime in society, and people think of gunshot wounds and stabbings and things like that. Well, if you've been to the scene of a motor vehicle crash, of a motor vehicle fatality, it's a violent scene. I mean, bodies are mangled, and our officers have to go there, deal with that scene. But the hardest part of that, particularly with young people, is to go knock on the door of the parents at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning and say, you know what, your loved one, your child is not coming home. Your child is a trauma. Your child is deceased.
Telling their parents or the loved ones that I'm so sorry that despite our best efforts, your loved one has now passed, that's the hardest part of my job. And that has happened more than a handful of times with people who have taken the decision that they're going to drive and then they're going to be distracted. Because it takes a fraction of a second. Nobody leaves the house saying, you know what, today I'm going to drive distracted. Today I will crash my car. Today I will show up a shock trauma. Today I will die.
You don't realize how much your parents love you, and their whole lives. Your parents' lives are focused on creating an environment where you're safe and where you can grow and do all the things you dream about doing. And so when something like that happens, and that just ends, and those dreams end, it just crushes parents, just crushes the families. Their lives, everything they focused on, the one person in their life is now gone.
Driving is difficult, necessary and difficult because it causes a lot of pain to a lot of people.
You can't, go back and fix somebody when their life has been taken. You can't go back and fix those bones and those bodies because it's already done. And the emotional damage that people live with is tremendous. It just is devastating that people have to live with those scars.
One bad decision can lead to a lifetime of struggle. Yeah, and that's if you're lucky. That same decision can potentially lead to your death. We see 8,500 patients at the Shock Trauma Center from Maryland every year. I want you to ask yourself, are you or one of your friends going to be one of that 8,500?
The simulator, it's basically, that's what it is, to simulate texting while driving. So it's set up like a video game and shows in a powerful way why you should not be texting while driving.
So, it's Tuesday morning on October 2nd. I woke up like a normal day, just pouring rain outside. Got my car to leave to school. Last thing my mom said to me was, drive safe.
Connor he texted me about 7:10 saying that the road that we normally take was closed.
While I was driving on Frederick Road, I got a call from Danny asking me about the road closure.
And then about a minute and a half into the conversation, I heard him curse into the phone, and then I heard the tires skid, and the phone went dead.
I felt my car hydroplane. Started spinning around this turn, spun back around, and drifted all the way into this pole right here, and crashed, and I was knocked unconscious on impact.
I was going this way on the road. I saw a car up on the grass facing this way, facing me. The hood was facing me, and at first I thought, no, that can't be Connor's car because it's facing the wrong way. And I saw his bumper stickers on the back as the car was wrapped around a telephone pole. And so I pulled over, got out, ran up to the firefighters, and I said, that's my friend. And he said, call his parents, he needs to be taken to shock trauma immediately.
The first thing I saw was my mom and Danny in the room, and I looked down at my chest and I saw a huge scar with staples. My mom had said that they had removed my spleen because I had lacerations to my spleen, my kidney, my liver, and my lungs, and the internal bleeding was so bad that they needed to perform that surgery so that I wouldn't have the possibility of bleeding to death.
His spine and back and neck were all messed up.
They found that I had a cervical fracture to my C7 vertebrae, pulmonary contusions, the lacerations to all my organs, a cyberarachnoid hemorrhage in my brain. Each day, Mom spent the night in a chair right next to me.
To watch you go through some of the horrible nights of adjusting to try medication and not eating, not getting a thing to eat, not getting a thing to drink for basically 10 days of absolutely nothing, and getting so horribly sick and in so much pain, and trying to manage that pain and feeling helpless to try to comfort you in any way, and having to see your child go through that was terrible.
My initial reaction was that I started to cry and said my prayers.
It's God and guardian angels and judgment, and that split-second judgment, how it can change your life.
I was in there for 11 days, but getting back in the car was probably like one of the hardest things. It was still kind of messing with me mentally.
It's scary, but it's still, I mean, you can still stop, at a stoplight and look around, and there's, every car, it seems like there's people doing something, and, it's out there, and it's kind of scary.
Changed my perspective, like you come so close to dying over just a phone call. That really meant nothing.
After something like this, and after all the reminders of people who weren't so lucky to come out of it, you realize nothing is more important, and the ramifications of that decision have such serious consequences that no text, no phone call, nothing's worth it.
I fortunately did survive, but there's people who aren't as lucky and die over a simple text message or phone call.